Well, hello and welcome to another episode of It's Stephen Time. I'm your host, Stephen Alexander. In today's episode, I have Harold Wallace III from the African American Culture Center here on APSU campus. Stay tuned, you're watching IST.
There's a Stephen Show, the Stephen Show, the Stephen Show, yeah.
So we talk about the topic diversity, and nowadays that topic is becoming more and more of a trend. So here today to talk about diversity and the African American Culture Center is Harold Wallace III. So how are you today, Harold?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We are, as you know how it is, television is a little different. We're going through some things today, but that's all right. People don't know, that's all right. But good to see you. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, growing up, where'd you grow up, and stuff like that?
So I am a proud Los Angeles, California native.
All right.
And LA in itself is a city in itself, but it's also a county. And so usually when you say that you're from Los Angeles, someone will say what part. And so I grew up in Inglewood and Compton.
Oh, wow.
For most of my upbringing.
Yeah.
Then made my way to Kansas City. And that's where I actually finished my last few years of high school.
Yeah.
And at that time, had an opportunity to play football in college and go either back to the coast or stay in Kansas and play football. So that's what I chose to do. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a culture shock for sure, coming from Los Angeles to Kansas City.
I want to ask you, how was that transition for you? Coming from Los Angeles and then going to Kansas City, what was that transition like for you? And during the time when you grew up in that transition, how did you feel?
I think that it was totally tough during that time period because I was in those younger adolescence years, and so home was home, and that's also where my mother still lives, and so that's where you always say that home is where the love is, and my love has always been in Los Angeles, but I think that it was an eye-opening experience because I got a chance to learn myself a little bit better instead of I got a chance to basically be who I am instead of being who I need to be to survive in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have to look over my shoulder anymore. I didn't have to carry myself in a manner that was defensive. I was able to just truly find out who I was. And so ended up being kind of a class clown. And,
so you got a personality
then. It really got a chance to come out. I was always a pretty silly guy, but it got a chance to really be brought to light when I got a chance to kind of be myself. And so, you know, won homecoming king my senior year, which is like kind of a big deal because we don't have a prom king and queen. And so that was kind of everything. But I just truly got a chance to live a life of love instead of a life of defense.
I kind of want to ask you now, so your career before Austin Peay, what was your career? What did you do before Austin Peay?
So I started off my higher education career actually working as a student employee while I was in college. And I had a chance to work for the Office of Multicultural Affairs at Wichita State University, and then also the Office of Student Diversity at Pittsburgh State University. So those are two schools that I went to during my undergraduate time. And that kind of helped me get into diversity itself, but also I learned that I loved helping other college students. And so, some of the people that I met during that time period really helped guide me towards wanting to do this as a career, because as most people know, there is no bachelor's degree for higher education, just a master's level, because most people don't really figure that out until actually once they graduate. And so I started off working at Johnson County Community College as a student development specialist, and then fell in love with a lady from Oklahoma City and made the leap of faith after being with her for about 5 months. My lease was up, and so I knew that she was going to be my wife, so I just made the leap of faith and moved down to Oklahoma City. And that's where I worked in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion at the University of Central Oklahoma. So we lived there for about 2 years, got engaged, got married. And then as soon as we got married, I got a job at Pittsburgh State University, where I just came from. I was the assistant director at the Office of Student Diversity there.
I kind of want to ask you what brought you to Austin Peay, because, you know, you're in Pittsburgh and then little old Tennessee and then Clarksville, Tennessee, like this. What brought you here? You know what I'm saying? Like this, of all places, you know?
To be honest, if you were a little bit familiar with Pittsburgh State University and Pittsburgh, Kansas, you would notice that Clarksville is like a metropolis in comparison.
Wow, okay.
And so it's a pretty small town. We are kind of we're a big town that other small towns come to, but the small city that we would go to escape would be Joplin, Missouri, which is in the bottom right corner of Joplin.
Yeah.
And so coming here, we were happy to have a Chipotle and a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Those were things that we used to have to drive 30 to 45 minutes just to get to. And so huge upgrade as far as city life. And me being from Los Angeles and now having children and a family, I don't think Los Angeles life is something I'll ever want to get back to. I love visiting, but the hustle and bustle and the expense that it costs to really live there is something that I don't look forward to.
Exactly.
So I love, as soon as we took this position, I started just getting all types of articles sent to me about how Clarksville was the next big thing.
Yeah,
and so we kind of picked the right choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you stated you were the director of student diversity programs at Pittsburgh State. So I kind of want to ask you, you have had a diverse background growing up. You've worked with so many diverse students in diverse places. So what does the word diversity mean to you?
To me, I think that it's the awesome thing about diversity to me is that it's always evolving. And so if you call yourself an expert at diversity, that means that you are always continuously learning and growing, because it is something that is changing on a daily basis. And so I love the Jane Elliott, the great Jane Elliott.
Yes.
She has so many different things that people look into and research now, but she says something that's a super big thing for me, and it's not necessarily a melting pot full of everybody, but it's a salad. And so, and what she means by that is that she enjoys tasting a tomato as a tomato, and a lettuce as lettuce, and onion as onion. She enjoys all of those flavors together, but being able to taste that there's a difference.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's important. Some of my students at Pittsburgh State University did something with some elementary school students that was pretty awesome. They basically gave the students one crayon and had them color their best picture that they like. And so these students made this awesome picture, but then they gave them a whole box of crayons and said, okay, now draw another picture. And they got a chance to choose which picture they liked best. And of course, they liked the one with more color. And so that was a way for us to kind of tell them that the world is way more beautiful because of all the different colors that are in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. And I want to ask you, from your encounters with many students, and we're talking about the word diversity, why do you feel like that this word is still being discussed nowadays? Because now we're talking about, hey, diversity, and why diversity is so important, and why all these different things, but why do you feel like that it's important to still talk about this?
I think because there's always going to be a foundation of what we came from. So understanding our history is important, and making sure that we have a good, realistic grasp on what our future could look like is the most important thing. But when it comes to diversity, we're still fighting the good fight. You know, a lot of people think that the civil rights movement really helped a lot, which it did, but it also exposed the fact that there was still so much work to be done.
Yeah.
And so we can always praise Martin Luther King and his work, but realistically we need more Dr. Kings to continue this work, to keep pushing towards a better world for all of us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that diversity is kind of a hot topic now, because some people are enjoying the meal that's placed in front of them, and then others are being forced to deal with that meal, and they don't know how to take it. And so I think it's important to kind of do our best to expose diversity to the masses in a way that it can be fed to them without hurting too many feelings or making people feel too uncomfortable.
Right.
Because we, of course, as human beings, don't like to be in that extreme discomfort, even though that's where growth really happens.
Yeah. I want to ask you, so with the word diversity and the tools we have to create diversity, how do you try to use those tools, and how will you use those tools in the position that you're in now to create a space between faculty and students to understand diversity?
I think it's important to, one, make sure that I am doing my part to be an advocate for diversity, and making sure that I continuously keep working to be an example of what I'm preaching.
Yeah.
And so I think one thing for me is understanding and helping people to understand that diversity is not just about race, and that it's about culture and it's about lifestyle and so on and so forth. And so it's important to make sure that people understand that it's not just about white, black, so on and so forth. It's about so much more than that. And so by doing my part to be to work with the LGBTQ population and make sure that that population understands that it is important for the heterosexual world to understand the thoughts and some of the things that our students deal with, our people deal with, period, from that population. And so as a heterosexual male, I do my part to be an African-American male heterosexual advocate for our LGBTQ population. And that's probably one of the biggest parts of diversity now that's being getting more attention.
Yeah. Well, Harold, we have more with Harold. We have to go to a commercial break, so thank you. But when we return, we'll have more with Harold Wallace. So stay tuned. You're watching IST.
You can help support Austin Peay students who don't have enough to eat by donating to the Save Our Students Food Pantry. The Save Our Students Food Pantry is looking for soup, pasta, canned meat, canned beans, peanut butter, and fruit. You can drop off your donations at the food pantry on Home Avenue. It's open Tuesdays through Friday, 8:30 until 4. For more information, call 221-1620, a campus reminder from Austin Peay.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Stephen Alexander. I am currently in the studio with coordinator of the Wilbur African American Culture Center here on campus with Harold Wallace III. So we're going to talk about now the African American Culture Center and what does it offer students here on campus?
So the center is, we're doing our best to make sure that it remains a home away from home for our students of all different cultural backgrounds. But of course, it's really awesome because the center itself pays homage to the students who helped start the center back in '91 and the fight and the push that they had to kind of get that space on campus.
Okay.
Realistically, that was one of the major reasons why I chose Austin Peay over a couple of different positions, because I loved the real estate. I loved the location of the center. It's literally right across from the UC, and that's like kind of a big deal because often on different campuses, a center like this may be on the outskirts of campus, so it's a little bit harder to get to, and it's not as convenient of a location. So when you go, you're making a commitment to go all the way over there, and then you want to stay and sit because you don't want to keep walking back and forth. But the fact that we are right here in the middle of campus, like, is super awesome to me. And so we have our tech checkout, which is one of our big programs that we have at the very beginning of each semester, and that's an opportunity for us to serve over 350 students with a laptop that they can actually, that we loan out for the semester. We also have our TI-84 and TI-83 calculators, which you all know that are about $130 sometimes. And so we're able to rent those to students and have that service that I love. Not only just helps our African American students, but helps all of our students. And so that's one of the programs that I'm super proud of that the center has. I've never been in a program or a college that has a service like that, especially especially on such a major scale.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 computers or 20 computers, but to be able to serve almost 350, 400 students is awesome. So we do that, but of course we do our part to make sure that we have our cultural programs to help educate campus about African American culture, but then also have programs that make our students feel comfortable here, especially our students of color, because this is a predominantly white institution, and so it's important to have these support centers on campus to make sure that we're taking care of the needs of the students of color. And
Gotcha.
but I love being able to do all of those things out of this one center and helping students from all different cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I want to ask you, since being in your position, in what ways has students impacted you personally?
To be honest, I'm continuously learning from students. I always appreciate working in higher education, one, because I think it kind of keeps me young.
Yeah.
I'm 34 years old, so I'm kind of at that tender age between being able to relate, but then also being old enough to know better. And so because of that, every day that I come into work, I'm learning something new from my students. Patience, learning more about myself. I love for students to be a mirror for me, because that's what I'm also trying to do for them. And so some of the things that I'm learning at 34, I make sure I pass them down to students that are 19 years old, because I don't want them to have to wait another 10 or 12 years to learn it like I did. And so it's important for me to do, to be the person I needed when I was a student. And so those type of things is what I really get from our student population. They continuously keep me on my toes, and they keep me learning and developing, but at the same time, I'm able to pour into them as well. So it's definitely a mutually beneficial situation.
And I like that. I like the fact that you're using your position as a reminder that it's a mutual thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not only students that you're impacting, but students are impacting you as well.
Right,
and
right.
through that, I feel like you will continue to stay young, because you will not have that closed mindset of, I know it all.
Right, right.
And I think that's where a lot of professors and faculty go wrong, and that's why they can't relate to students. But if they're offended by that, I'm not trying to start nothing.
Hey.
I'm just saying, like, if you hear this and it's like that's not sitting well with you, figure something out.
Yeah.
And within you. That's all I gotta say. I want to ask you now, as a new, I guess, as a new director, sometimes it's hard to create an atmosphere for people to feel welcome within the center, especially when people hear the term African American Culture Center. They think that it's not inclusive.
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you have to say about that? Is the center inclusive?
It is. It is. It's a little bit too much space for just African American students. Like, we love to share our space. We love for different organizations to use our space. But I think it all kind of stems back even to just being an African American man. There are certain steps and certain things that I do to help the majority population feel comfortable around me. And so, especially me being a bigger guy, I'm 6'1", and I'm an ex-football player, and so I have to be conscious of those things when I'm in different spaces. And so what I do is try to make sure that I create an atmosphere that is open to students, but we are going to take that extra step to be extra open to students. And so when we do see a new face pop in our center, then that's when my student employees and myself, we turn it up a little bit, and we're a little bit more chipper and a little bit more, because we want that experience to be a really good experience, because that's what keeps people coming back. And so it's important to, when we have those huge programs like our tech checkout, to make it as smooth and seamless of a process as possible, and also a pleasant experience, because then those students are much more willing to come check out the other programs that are not just need-based.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I think it's important to take that extra step to make sure that we can kind of create a better environment for everybody.
Right, right. I kind of want to ask you, before we go to commercial, what are some upcoming events? Because the African American Culture Center and every center here on campus is always doing something. So what specifically is the African American Culture Center doing? What events?
So we have Women's History Month that is here.
And that's this month,
It
March.
is this month, March, yes. So we had our not Black History Month. We just got done with that. And it was a bunch of programming that we had there, but we had our Women's History Month kickoff. That was this Monday. And of course we have food for our students, but it's also an opportunity for us to talk about some of our future programs. And so some of the upcoming events we have are anything from a spa day for our women. that our students actually came up with this program. So I'm super excited to be able to like put them in positions to truly run things. And so I say, hey, this is the budget. What are you all interested in doing? And so 2 programs that they specifically came up with was the spa day, and then also there's going to be a tea party at the end of the month. And so, and what we mean by tea is actual tea will be served, but we're going to talk about what's the tea, and so any hot topics for women, and it's going to be a safe environment that is only for women. So me, myself, I won't even be there.
Okay.
And so I think it's important to kind of make sure that we do our part to create those spaces for women to be comfortable and free to speak whatever they want.
Right.
And so super happy to have those 2 programs. And then after spring break, we have a program on that Monday called Spring Break Isn't Over. And so what it's going to be is a chance for us to, you're going to be coming back to classes, but we want to let you know that the turn up isn't over. And so we're going to have a good time in the center, and that's going to be that Monday right after spring break. But yeah, we have a few programs put in place, a women's appreciation dinner.
Okay.
Which will be all open to all women, but we will have 10 to 15 young men serving women.
Okay.
From head to toe, everything they need.
You already know the ladies are gonna turn it up. Yes, can I get an extra? You know they're gonna be extra with it. Yes.
Exactly, and that is the day that they can do that with no issues.
Yeah.
And so the people, we are being super strategic about the young men that we choose to make sure that they understand that this day is 100% for women. And so the men will go up one by one throughout the evening and talk about what they appreciate in the women in their life, being their mother, sister, anybody that they have, but then also things they love and appreciate about maybe a future spouse or so on and so forth. So it'll be an opportunity for them to even get a little shine as well.
Okay, okay, well that's perfect. Well, we have to take another commercial break, but when we return, we'll have more with Harold Wallace III. So stay tuned. You're watching IST.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self. And I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
College can be hard, and sometimes life can be even harder. That's why Austin Peay offers counseling services for students in need of help. Whether it's mental health, relationship advice, or even having someone just to vent to, counseling services are available. All you have to do is call 221-6162 or stop by their office in the Art Building and begin finding your way back to wellness. For more information about student counseling services, check out our Facebook page at WAPXFM 91.9.
Your girls have been with you through every moment of your life. They were with you when you felt unbreakable, and with you when you had your heart broken. They were with you when you shared your love with the world, and with you when she became your world. They're still with you right now. how well do you know them?
Welcome back. I'm your host, Stephen Alexander, and now it's time for us to get in the zone. And I'm in the studio with Harold Wallace III, and we're going to talk about more about diversity and why that's so important. And I want to ask you, what are some examples do you think our society should set when it pertains to being diverse? What should we set?
I think that we should kind of do a better job of making ourselves be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think that as human beings, we are kind of taught, and it's natural for us to look for comfortable spaces. And so that's why we love our home, and that's why we love our bed and things that are ours, because those are places that we've made comfortable. But I think it's important to understand that the second you walk outside of your home, you should be ready and comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right.
And so I think for different populations, they already have that built in them because of the world that they live in. But then, of course, our majority population is now being kind of pushed in certain directions that's making them kind of step outside of their comfort zone. And so it's one thing to be forced out of your comfort zone, but when you actually make a cognitive decision to step outside yourself, it's usually a much more pleasant experience. And so I think that we need to do our best to make it a beautiful thing to be uncomfortable. And
Yeah, I agree. I also think too, when it pertains to being uncomfortable, we have to go in the spots, like you said, where we're not comfortable. And also too, we have to be willing to learn that it's okay to be uncomfortable, because through being uncomfortable, you'll learn so much more.
Yeah.
You'll experience so much more. You're growing, because when you're comfortable, you're no longer growing.
Right.
I had to learn that the hard way, because I like to be in spaces. I do like diversity a lot when it pertains to people. I love diverse people. I always have, always will. But sometimes in my space, in my in my home or wherever, I don't like too much diversity, just because I don't know. But I'm learning that that's actually a good thing in society, and because we're all changing, and that's what's important. And then one of my best friends, he's always talking about just pushing me to go over and beyond when it pertains to change. So here over the last year, I've been learning that change is good, and I've never thought it was a bad thing, but I'm learning that it's better to experience change, because that's when you experience growth.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I love that. My next question to you is, why do you think many people are reluctant to be in a space where there is diversity?
I think that it's become natural to us, which is kind of an oxymoron in itself, to become natural, but to be in comfort is something that we always look for. And so there are certain people that are happy with the way things are, and so change for them is uncomfortable, and it's something that they're afraid of. And there's nothing that's human. But like I said before, if we can do our part to try to help people understand that the only thing that is constant is change.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing that we can do but make sure that we do our best to equip ourselves with the ability to evolve with the times.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's why people are so reluctant, because we like what always has been, if things have been happy, but if things were not necessarily the most pleasant experience, then those are the people that are hoping for change and are wanting change because they're not happy in their current situation.
Right.
And so the majority population has had an opportunity to be comfortable and not necessarily want to be in those situations.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And also too, they're telling us we have to wrap up, but I'm just gonna start talking before we wrap up, because they know that's what I do best. But I will say that, and I'll also say too, it's important for people to understand in the spaces that you're in, that if you do not want to be in spaces with people who are diverse, I think that you have a problem. And and I'm not trying to single you out, but I'm saying there's something within you that you're not happy with. There's something within you that you need to identify and figure out what that space is, to understand why am I acting this way, and why am I treating someone differently based upon people being diverse.
Right.
Because you're not going to always agree with people, and that's okay, but you have to learn just to be like, accept them how they are, because that's how God accepts us, and
Right.
God loves us, and he sees the beauty of us, so we have to start seeing the beauty of people.
Yes.
So Harold, I want to thank you so much for your time today. You've been great, and I love talking about diversity because it's such a vital topic in today's society. So I just want you to know that you're welcome back anytime. So thank you so much. And guys, thank you for tuning in today to It's Steven Time. I look forward to seeing you guys next week with more news and entertainment. And always remember to, let's go Peay.
There's a Steven Show, the Steven Show, the Steven Show, yeah.